Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our phishing awareness session held right here at the PCJ Auditorium and streamed online. Hi, everyone online. So, my name is Zoe Duncan, a Tier 1 SOC analyst here at JCERT, and I will be the host for today. So, this session is a part of our 10th anniversary celebrations. For the past decade, we've been growing, adapting, and facing countless cyber threats together, all in one mission of protecting you all, your organization, and the nations from digital danger. So throughout the year, we're going to be having activities such as this one, like sessions like this, webinars, school visits for our 10th year anniversary celebration. So stay tuned to our websites or social media for further information. So a bit of housekeeping. For everyone online, if you have any questions, just drop them in the comment section and we will answer them at the Q&A segment. For people here, if you have any questions, just write them down and they'll also be addressed at the Q&A segment. Please keep your phones on silent. And for in the case of any fire or earthquake, there is a assembly point across the road. And if you want to use the bathroom, as soon as you exit right there, you will see the elevators to the right and the bathrooms are to the left. So we'll be having a short video on the 10 years of resilience, collaboration, and progress, which we're proud of. And following the video, we will have a little icebreaker, which will be done by Daniil Downer and Rihanna Hajigo.
The internet is amazing. We use it for everything. We shop, bank, and connect with friends online. But the internet also has dangers. Bad people try to steal information and cause trouble. That's where the Cyber Incident Response Team Division comes in. They are the good guys. They protect us from those online bad guys. This year, we celebrate their 10th anniversary. 10 years of keeping us safe online. Let's take a look back at their journey. We rely on the internet more than ever, but this reliance makes us vulnerable. The Cyber Incident Response Team Division understands these risks. They work tirelessly to protect us. The Cyber Incident Response Team Division started small in 2015. A small group of dedicated experts came together. They shared a vision of a safer digital world.
We knew the challenges were huge, but we were determined to make a difference.
They faced an uphill battle. Technology was rapidly evolving, cyber threats were becoming more sophisticated, but the team was undeterred. They knew their mission was vital. They focused on building a strong foundation. They developed their skills and expertise. They were ready to tackle the growing number of cyber threats. The world of cybersecurity is constantly changing. New technologies emerge, cyber criminals find new ways to attack. The Cyber Incident Response Team Division has kept pace. They embrace new technologies like artificial intelligence. They use AI to detect and stop threats in real time. Their systems are always learning and improving. The team is always on the lookout for new threats. They study the latest hacking techniques. They share this knowledge with partners in government and business. Their proactive approach has been key to their success. They are constantly adapting and evolving to stay ahead of the bad guys. A legacy of success, protecting our digital future. Over the past decade, the Cyber Incident Response Team Division has achieved incredible things. Their dedication and expertise have been instrumental in safeguarding our digital landscape. They have successfully mitigated thousands of cyber incidents, ensuring that potential threats are neutralized before they can cause significant harm. They have protected critical infrastructure and sensitive data, ensuring that our most vital systems remain secure and operational. They have played a key role in national defense programs, working tirelessly to defend our nation against cyber threats that could compromise our national security. They collaborate with private companies to enhance cybersecurity across industries, fostering a culture of shared responsibility and mutual support.
The partnership has been invaluable, said the CEO of a leading tech company. Their insights and proactive measures have been crucial in fortifying our defenses. Their expertise has helped us strengthen our defenses and protect our customers, ensuring that our services remain reliable and secure.
Their impact extends far beyond these partnerships. They are shaping the future of cybersecurity, adopting new standards and best practices. They are committed to creating a safer digital world for everyone, continuously innovating and adapting to new challenges. They are true heroes of the digital age, working behind the scenes to protect our digital lives and ensure a secure future for all Jamaicans. Empowering the next generation of cyber defenders. The Cyber Incident Response Team Division knows that education is key to a safer future. They believe that by educating the youth today, we can build a more secure tomorrow. They are passionate about teaching people about cybersecurity. Their dedication is evident in every lesson they deliver, ensuring that students grasp the importance of online safety. They run outreach programs in schools and communities. These programs are designed to reach a wide audience, from young children to adults, making sure everyone is informed. They offer workshops and training sessions. These sessions are interactive and hands-on, providing practical knowledge that participants can apply in their daily lives. They want everyone to understand online risks and how to stay safe. By spreading awareness, they aim to create a community that is vigilant and prepared against cyber threats.
These programs are so important, said a local teacher. They provide our students with the knowledge and skills they need to navigate the digital world safely. They are teaching our students essential skills for the future. These skills are not just for their personal safety, but also prepare them for potential careers in cybersecurity.
The division also supports cybersecurity education in universities. They collaborate with academic institutions to improve and fast-track the integration of cybersecurity into their curriculums. They provide resources and mentorship to the next generation of cyber professionals. This mentorship is crucial in guiding students through their educational and professional journeys. They are ensuring that we have the talent to face future challenges. By investing in education and mentorship, they are building a robust pipeline of skilled cybersecurity professionals ready to tackle tomorrow's threats. Navigating the future of cyber threats. The future of cybersecurity is full of unknowns, but one thing is certain: the threats will continue to evolve. The Cyber Incident Response Team Division is ready.
We are constantly preparing for new challenges, said the current director. Our team is dedicated to staying ahead of the curve.
They are investing in cutting-edge technologies. They are exploring new strategies to combat cybercrime. They are building a more resilient and secure digital future. Their commitment to innovation and collaboration will be crucial in the years to come. They are our first line of defense in an increasingly complex digital world. 10 years strong, ready for the next challenge, the Cyber Incident Response Team Division is a shining example of dedication and excellence. Over the past decade, they have consistently demonstrated their commitment to safeguarding our digital infrastructure. They are a diverse team of talented individuals united by a common goal to protect us from cyber threats. Their varied backgrounds and unique perspectives make them exceptionally effective in tackling complex challenges. For a decade, they have worked tirelessly behind the scenes. Their dedication often means long hours and late nights, ensuring that our systems remain secure. They have kept us safe. Through constant vigilance and proactive measures, they have thwarted countless cyber threats. They have allowed us to enjoy the benefits of the digital age. Thanks to their efforts, we can use technology with confidence, knowing that our data is protected. Their mission is far from over. As cyber threats evolve, so too must their strategies and technologies. As we become even more reliant on technology, the work of the Cyber Incident Response Team division becomes even more critical. They are constantly adapting to new threats and leveraging the latest advancements in technology. We can be confident that they are up to the challenge. Their expertise and unwavering commitment ensure that they are always prepared to defend against any cyber threat. Through the National Security Operations Centre, they maintain a constant watch on the .jm cyberspace, and the Jamaica Cyber Incident Response Team stands ready to deploy on its own, or in collaboration with the stakeholders in Jamaica's cyber ecosystem. They are the guardians of our digital world. Their vigilance and dedication allow us to navigate the digital landscape securely and confidently. We thank them for their sacrifices as they continue to respond today and secure our future.
All right, I know that was a lot to take in. So we are going to break the ice a little bit. My name is Rihanna Hadrigal, and I am a Tier 2 Security Operations Center Analyst at the CERT Division. So we're going to play a game of Kahoot. So I hope everyone has their devices ready. You should see a QR code on the screen. All right, so I'm just going to ask everyone to scan the QR code. I know some persons may be a bit skeptical about the QR code, so you can always navigate to the link and enter the game pin that you're seeing on the screen. This is not only for our in-person participants, so our participants that are joining us online can play this game as well. Just indicate in the chat if you are the winner. And we do have prizes for the first, second, and third place winners. So I'm going to give everyone about another minute to join, and then we can begin. Bear in mind, we have 20 seconds to answer each question. Everyone has joined? No? And bear in mind, you don't have to have any in-depth technical knowledge to answer these questions. These are general questions surrounding phishing, all right? So all right, I think we can begin. All right, here we go. All right, here comes the first question. So what is phishing in cybersecurity? So is it phishing with a net, hacking a computer directly, sending fraudulent messages to trick people, or downloading a video game? No, we're not going to say the answers out loud. We're going to do it on our devices, all right? All right, nice. All right, so we have Jihan in first place. Is Jihan in person? Online? Wow, okay. All right, which is not a phishing method. We have email phishing, spear phishing, phishing, or packet sniffing. got that one wrong? And we have Gian in first place still. So this is a true or false question. So this one says phishing only happens through email. So is that true or is that false? I don't think anyone should get this one incorrectly. Really? All right. So we have someone with the highest answer streak. All right, so the other question, what is the main purpose of phishing? So is this to steal our personal or financial data, to fix computer problems, to provide free internet, or is it to update our softwares? All right, good, good, good. All right, so we have Kimberly in first place. All right, so what is spear phishing? So is it a spam that is sent to many, sending threats to strangers? Is it a targeted phishing attack, or does it block phishing websites? All right, good. All right, so Jihan is back in first place. All right, so which of these is a warning sign of a phishing email? So is it urgent request for action, proper grammar or spelling, no links or attachments, or known contact email address only? So a warning sign. Great. All right, so Kimberly is back in first place with a streak. So what is whaling in phishing? So are we talking about the phishing from boats, or is it aimed at executives or VIPs? Is it hacking websites with whales or large-scale phishing campaigns? All right, I mean, that's why we're here. All right, and Jihan back. All right. All right, so hovering your mouse over a link can reveal the real URL. Is that true or is that false? All right, so Kimberly's off the scoreboard. All right, so what is phishing? So is it via phone calls? Is it virtual security, phishing via video, or virus sharing phishing? All right, so 13 persons got that one correctly. Right. And GN is still in first place. All right, what is smishing? So is it social media phishing, small phishing attempts, sending memes in phishing emails, or SMS text message phishing? Smishing. All right, so 11 persons got that one correctly. So true or false, a secure website, which is HTTPS, can never be used for phishing. Is that true or is that false? All right. So two persons got it incorrectly. All right, Gian is now still in first place, and we have a new third place. All right, so what should you do before clicking a link in an email? So do we bookmark it immediately, forward it to our friends? We click on it quickly to check, or do we hover over it to see the actual URL? All right, so only one person got that one wrong. All right, so we're at question 13 of 15. So this is another true or false. So phishing can only happen through fake job offers. Can also happen through fake job offers. So keyword also. So can also. So 5 persons. 5 persons got that incorrectly. All right. All right, so we have Popo now in second place. All right, so what's a sign a website might be fake? So is it misspelled domain name, a matching logo, HTTPS visible, or when a contact form is present? All right. So this is the last question. The last question is coming up, and the last question is worth double points. So anyone get this one correctly, you get double points. All right, so what is clone phishing? So is it sending phishing to identical twins, or making fake websites only? Or is it copying a legitimate email and replacing links with malicious one? Or is it hacking into a server? Which one is it? Clone phishing. All right, so we have 13 persons who got that one correctly. So let us see what the leaderboard will be. So in third place, we have Popo. Is Popo here in person? All right. And in second place, we have Lexus. Lexus, is Lexus here? All right. And in first place, we have Jihan. And Jihan is joining us online. So Jihan, you can just indicate in the chat, and then we will arrange for you to get your gift. All right. So we're going to ask Popo and Lexus to just, you can stay back to get your prices. All right. All right. So
good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Warm welcome to those who are joining us in person and those who are participating verbally on our online platform. It is my privilege to introduce our distinguished speaker for today, Lieutenant Colonel Godphey Sterling, Director of the Cyber Incident Response Team Division. Colonel Sterling served in Jamaica Defense Force for over 24 years, holding range of staff and command roles. During his military service, he collaborated with the MITRE Corporation and the U.S. Southern Command to create the Caribbean's first info-sharing network known as the CISN in 1998. Serving as the head of its technical group until 2007, he had played a central role in major technology transformations within the JDF between the year of 1998 and 2019, cementing his reputation as the leader in ICT and cybersecurity, both regional and international. In 2020, he was appointed Deputy Managing Director at the Jamaican Urban Transit Company, also known as JUTC, where he would have spearheaded as a technological overhaul of the organization. His vision would have led the creation of technology-enabled bus operations center that would have revolutionized fleet management optimize passengers' movement, and significantly reduce the operational inefficiencies. Today, as the director of the Cyber Incident Response Team Division within the Office of the Prime Minister, Colonel Sterling is responsible for governance, risk, and compliance across Jamaica's cyber ecosystem. He oversees both the National Security Operations Center and the Jamaica Cyber Incident Response Team, better known as the NSOC and the JASCERT, delivering critical services such as vulnerability assessments, crisis management, and incident response, along with coordinating its national cybersecurity operations. Colonel Sterling's academic and professional credentials are equally impressive. He holds certifications or certificates in cybersecurity from the U.S. Army War College, the, the George C. Marshall European Center for Security Studies, and the Carnegie Mellon University. A diploma in systems automations from the U.S. Army Signal School, a bachelor's degree with honors in computer science from the University of Technology, Jamaica, a master's degree in defense studies from the Royal Military College of Canada, and a master's of science in cybersecurity from the Universidad Isabel I in Madrid, Spain. He also is certified by the IEEE Cybersecurity Management for the energy sector and by the United Nations in Digital Government Transformation. Beyond his personal life, Colonel Sterling is an avid reader, sports enthusiast, and an outdoors man. He values both active engagement and reflective on his solitude. Ladies and gentlemen, both here and online, please join me in welcoming Lieutenant Colonel Godphey Sterling as he shares his insights, his perspective that will inform, inspire, and guide us all. Thank you.
Right. Um, After an introduction like that, I am not sure what else I'm supposed to come up here and say. But it really is warming to see the turnout to our first in-person event in the MSET or the PCJ building since 2019. Um, the pandemic would have struck and we would have gone into quarantine, and coming out of it, we have not had an event in this auditorium since. So I thank you all for braving the weather to turn up. And for those online, I thank you for continuing to be loyal supporters of Jamaica's pursuit of cyber resilience. The honor is mine today to really have a conversation with you. It's said to be a sensitization session, and hopefully sometime they will find the slides and the slides will go up there. But really what I want to have is a conversation about phishing. And probably more importantly, we need to talk about some of the circumstances around phishing in the cyber ecosystem. Because one of the things that I find in Jamaica that we do not pay a lot of attention to is spam. And spam in Jamaica is creating a number of challenges for persons, some of them legitimate users of their internet IP addresses, as well as other resources. But what we find some of the entities that do block listing and blacklisting are doing is taking a block of IP addresses and just simply blocking it. And so you, a legitimate customer, you're finding that your IP address ends up in a block that is deemed malicious, even though you're not doing anything. And even more importantly, these entities are requiring that you pay them to take you out of that block. And sometimes your ISPs are unwilling to do a reverse DNS setup for you unless you pay. So wherever you turn, if you don't pay attention to those simple things, eventually it may come back to hurt you. Now, phishing is something that, we talk a lot about it, but it's really not new. When I started in cyber, we used to do what we call dumpster diving. And a lot of people would hear it and think it's just something that you talk about. But no, We used to go to houses and businesses and rifle through bins to look for credit cards. Back then, you rub the thing on the carbon paper and you got your credit card receipt. And it usually have a lot of data that could be used to build a profile for you. And so once we had a target, we didn't have social media that gave us everything at our fingertips. We really had to do the legwork to get social engineering done. Today, it's a lot easier because when we look at it, we really have everything online. We overshare. We're not very careful in where we go or what we do with our digital personality. And so it creates a bit of a challenge. So even though the scope for today's session seemed like a tall ask, I will try to do it in 20 minutes. And that is because it's been a long day probably for you at work, and I don't intend to keep you beyond what you really are here to treat with. So who am I and why am I here? I really, at the heart of it, I'm a soldier who has continued to serve beyond my time in uniform. And the reason I do that is because I believe that Jamaica and Jamaicans deserve the best. And when I looked at where we were in 2020, when I was asked to take on the challenge, it was a far cry from where I anticipated we would have been, having been there in 2013 when we had the biggest challenge in cyber that Jamaica's had, with over 290 websites being defaced in one attack. Now, today, we've come some ways, but really, we should be a lot further on. And this is what the CERT division does. Coming out of the National Cybersecurity Strategy of 2015, the division has 12 mandates. And these 12 mandates really seek to position Jamaica digitally from a security standpoint in a very good position. Admittedly, the National Task Force for Cybersecurity that really was supposed to operationalize the mandates of the strategy sort of just disappeared naturally. We can't fix that. What we can do is to take what they've done and build on it as we move forward. And so the division, when the pandemic started, was really just a reactive capacity for cyber incidents in government. What we had to do was to pivot, to recognize that as the pandemic wore on and persons took services online, we needed to ensure that we could provide a level of security for these entities. And whilst a lot of persons may think, well, you're a division in a ministry, so you're responsible for government, we're not. We're responsible for Jamaica and Jamaicans as far as cybersecurity is concerned. The National Security Operations Center is that fusion center that pulls from our international partners or regional partners or local partners and our own sensors and feeds. And what it allows us to have is a persistent picture of threat and threat actors with respect to Jamaica. The Jamaica Cyber Incident Response Team is here to respond to any and all eventualities. Now, in Jamaica, it's a little different because people will tell me from the get-go, you're starting with a trust deficit. People don't trust government, and you work in government, you work for government. No, I work in government and I work for the people. And the people, you and those online and everybody else, really ought not to have a reason not to trust us just yet. In the future, there might be cases, and we will always try to make our case in defense of the actions that we take. But the actions we take will always be for the greater good. So while an individual entity or person might have a difficulty with a set of actions that we take, it is never intended to just suit that one entity or person, but for the benefit of the nation. Admittedly, there are circumstances where that entity may be in an existential situation. And those situations, those reasons will always be taken into consideration when we make that decision. But at the end of it, it has to be that the greater good is where we're going to come down when the chips fall. So that is what we do in a nutshell. We provide world-class service in all spheres of cyber and cyber governance And the good thing is, we do it absolutely free. So while you might contract a company because they may have a better marketing strategy or they may be more accessible, I would ask only one thing, that you do not make the first document that they stretch to you or that you sit and craft with them be a non-disclosure agreement. Instead, let it be an information sharing agreement such that the information that they glean from their response to your incident can be sanitized and shared to ensure that your sister, your brother entity does not suffer the same attack, the same compromise by the same actor because you refused to share. So maybe if you, yeah. So we spoke about social engineering, and it has really sort of evolved. What we have today is social engineering that is really continuing the trend of manipulating people. It appeals to human psychology and human needs, wants, and weaknesses. That has not changed in the years that we've been doing it. However, what we find is that phishing, in all its shapes and forms, has become one of the most prevalent ways that people do social engineering. And this is why we're here today, because what we're seeing when we look at the threat picture is quite concerning. And some of the more visible methods of the compromise is that as a company, you will lose money because the phishing simply provides information or resources to the threat actors who are then going to perpetrate second and third order attacks against you, sometimes as great as ransomware attacks. The theft of your identity is something that we don't often pay a lot of attention to. But there was a recent case where a Trinidadian national was treated in a particular way, traveling, because his identity was stolen, and there was a case of mistaken identity at ports of entry. The CFO for Grace Kennedy was traveling from Jamaica and was taken off the plane in a case of mistaken identity in a similar situation. So when you go online and you believe that you're just entering your name, your email address, and something else, it is you giving that toehold to a threat actor. And with the advancement in technology, that toehold can take over your entire life and create significant displacement and embarrassment, sometimes financial loss, and ultimately, in other jurisdictions, people have committed suicide because of the resultant fallout from losing their identity. You lose your house, you lose your job, you lose your family. It is unending. But even more importantly, when the organization suffers a breach and the National Security Operations Center, through sometimes the Jamaica Cyber Incident Response Team, issues breach notifications. Now, I'll be the first to admit, sometimes the breach data that we're seeing on the deep and dark web is not because your organization was breached. Usually, it falls into two big buckets. One, your employees use their corporate credentials to sign on to questionable sites, which get compromised. And they're using the same email address and password on your corporate network. So when we find it on the dark web and we test it on your network, we get in. Now, what we have been able to do, or have had to do, is to lock the account and advise the entity. Because somebody else might use it to get in, do lateral movement, escalate privileges, and do other things. So when we look at phishing, if you look at the graphic, you will see that it started way back before we were even writing on paper, from in the days of tablets. And it has continued to today because mankind, by our very nature, just tend to like certain things. The easy way, the nice things, the lavish lifestyle. But when we look at it, we really have to be careful in today's day and age when information, personal information, health information, financial information is the gold standard for currency for transactions, that we're not sharing too much too easily. We're not giving it away. So, in terms of the modalities, what we have today, the most common one, email phishing. We see it every day. And despite the efforts of organizations, of incident response teams and companies to run sensitization sessions such as this, to go into organizations and teach people. And I hope that by now we've all sort of redone our script, because AI has taken out some of the usual red flags that no longer are red flags, really. But when we do all of that, there is still that one employee who, for whatever reason, is going to click the link, is going to download that attachment, or is going to just visit that website. And so there are other things that we have to put in place. Smishing is SMS phishing, and if you have monies in NCB, then you're really fair game for smishing, because for some strange reason, the threat actors seem to just love NCB. If there is going to be a scam that targets a financial institution, NCB will be in the top 3. And so we have to be careful that we recognize that we're no longer all using bangers. People like me continue to use them, but we're all using smartphones, computers that we carry on our persons. And so it's no longer just SMS, but it's enriched SMS, it's MMS. And so when we get those links, we should not be so quick to click on them. It really doesn't matter what it is saying. We really need to pay attention, take the time, spend the time, and read it through, and read it through critically. I know when we talk about critical thinking, people say, sure, a waste of time. But if we really don't do that, sometimes we miss subtle changes, subtle variations that really are going to say to us, this message warrants further attention. Voice is critical. 10 seconds, that's what I need to clone your voice. Just you talking anywhere for 10 seconds. And I can create an algorithm that will say anything I want, and it will sound like you, and I will get a near perfect match if you do a sound analysis based on what I am playing and what you've said. 10 seconds. So imagine when you have those 2-minute, 3-minute voice notes that are just all over the place. Sometimes with you hungry, sometimes with you happy, sometimes with you just normally talking. By pulling those together, I can create the sort of waveforms that will allow me to have you say anything, irrespective of where you are. Search engine phishing. Now, a lot of entities are going online. And when they create their most common internet interface, the website, a lot of entities don't pay attention to search engine optimization. Now, if I know that you are coming online with a nice product, which is going to at least initially have a bunch of people just rushing towards your website, I am going to not necessarily clone your website, but I'm going to ensure that my site is so optimized that when they type in what is meant to take them to your site, my site comes up first. And the sad thing is, we're usually doing that when we're in a hurry. So the first thing that pops up, usually it says most relevant, we just click on it. And that's it, we're caught. Social media, I really don't know what to say about social media. It's a great thing, and it's a detrimental thing. We share, we connect, we learn. Crowdsourcing to get certain problems solved, social media is great. But it also represents one of the easiest ways for us to just give out things. It's kind of like walking into the bank and withdrawing a nice sum of money, but putting it in a paper bag and walking out in a rainstorm. The bag is going to get soaked. The money is going to fall out. You're going to lose it. And oftentimes, that is how we treat social media. We just put things on. But it has to be that we start looking at how we share on social media a little differently. And we cannot forget the physical digital nexus of what we share, right? Because when we do this, what you find is that it might not end in a cyber crime. It might end in a cyber enabled crime, where what you share allows for the creation of a profile that lists your physical address. You're in a nice, uppity neighborhood, you probably are fairly opulent. And so you become a nice target. So the risks are real. And then we talk about phishing. And I know I have QR codes at the back. And almost every eating establishment you go to, they no longer have paper menus. They tell you to scan a QR code. But where is that QR code when the restaurant is closed or when it's not in operation? Who can peel it off or just paste something over it that once you scan it, takes you somewhere else? And this is really what we're talking. You walk into an airport, into a mall, and it says, scan me. And you think something good is at the end of it. But is it something good? Or is it something bad? And so when it comes to QR code, it is very efficient, but it can be used to very deadly consequences. So when you scan the code, pay attention to what comes up on your phone or your device. And if you're uncertain, then ask for a paper menu if you're in a restaurant, or navigate to the link. Write the link down that pops up and enter it into a browser and see where it goes. Because sometimes if you just follow the link, it will take you places you don't want to go. So on, what was that, Sunday night, a certain clip was played at a certain event that had certain things said. And on Tuesday, the proponent of the spoken word provided an alternate to what was played. And the expert that was brought on dealt fairly well with the topic. But I believe the idea that you can only get a shorter version from the original was a misconception that ought not to have been put into the conversation. Because you can take the algorithm from the shorter version and you can create the longer version. And so when we talk about deepfake from both audio and video, it is something that we have to be very careful of. Those nice reels that we do, those panoramas that we take, can be used to generate significantly convincing synthetic material. So just imagine you're at home, your teenage, your young adult child is out, and you're awakened to a voice note, to a video call, to a short video that is purportedly from the person and seeks to suggest that they're in danger, that they require help, that you know you need to really sort of get an urgent move on to help them. But that's the easy part. The hard part is when you're in a corporation. And in this day and age, when we have sort of normalized virtual meetings, you can't really tell if at the other end you're talking to a human being, because that deepfake could be so realistic that you think you're talking to an actual human being. The time lag, the expression changes, the synthesis of the voice is such that you cannot distinguish the difference. And the classic case that we will look at is where the CFO of a company halfway across the world was really There was a deepfake created of him and other members of the C-suite, and that led to the transfer of just about 25.6 million US dollars from one company. Conversational phishing. So, we've gotten used to treating with getting something and dealing with it and just moving on. But what about the person you're having a text message conversation with? And you believe that you're just really sort of responding to questions. And so you're asked something like, what you think about NCB? And you say, well, I don't bank with NCB, I bank with Scotia. Did you just answer the question, or did you just tell them where to find your account? And as you carry on the conversation, what you're telling them is being fed into algorithms, it's being written down and compared with other data. And by the end of the conversation, 3, 5, 7 minutes, they have a profile. And that profile is where your nightmares will start. So when you're conversing, especially if it's with somebody you don't know, I mean, tell a person, yeah, cool, let's have a phone conversation, or let's meet. It's probably not possible depending on where the text message is originating or where the call will come from, but use other methods just to confirm. I know it can be a bit painful, but what's the cost? What's the pain threshold of losing your identity? We used to talk about scamming, and in the latter part of the 90s, especially out west, that was a thing. But one of the things that Americans used to use to identify that the scammer was from Jamaica was that broken English. Patois is now a language in Google Translate. And AI will take any language and translate it to Patois. And by extension, English into any other language, or any other language into AI. And what this means is that no longer can you really decipher that this is a Nigerian calling you, or this is somebody from Ghana calling you, or somebody from the Far East, because they're speaking their native language, but the synthesizers are translating it on the fly, and you're hearing your native language as well. So this multilingual and native phishing, which are two of the more recent forms, are really creating problems for us as cybersecurity professionals. What it means, therefore, is that we cannot stress enough that you be vigilant. And real time, we talk about endpoint detection and response systems. We talk about XDR, we talk about MDR, NDR, and we say, yes, we're good. But you work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Your IT team probably does the same thing. As a cyber criminal, all I need is a basement, a good internet connection, and a case of Red Bull. I have no time to really work with time. And so I can sit and I can take a single task, and I will not get up to eat or use the restroom until I've finished it. And when you've gone home for the night, or you've gone home for the weekend or the holiday, is when I strike. So your EDR is now really not protection. It is just a filter. It is just something to slow the attack down. It will not stop it. Even if it has artificial intelligence built into it, what it will do is identify the anomaly. But when it does, where does that alert go? To a cell phone in a bedside table drawer that will not be unlocked until the following morning, or the Monday morning if it's a Friday evening? Or is it going to someone who can respond? Or is your setup such that if the anomaly is detected, your systems will automatically treat with it, whether by blocking it, deleting, quarantining, do something until your Mark 1 eyeballs can look at the system? And these are things that we have to talk about. I spoke about native when we dealt with multilingual, but really what it means is that you can no longer rely on the body of knowledge that came out of the last decade in treating with phishing and scams, because artificial intelligence, particularly generative artificial intelligence has thrown those out the window. It really now is about vigilance and just being untrusting or trusting, but verifying. You decide how you go about it. So we tend, when we talk about cybersecurity, especially for Jamaica, to ask the question, who wants to attack Jamaica as a nation state? The truth is, ladies and gentlemen, that if you listen to the Western European and North American narrative, it's China with all the typhoons, the Volt typhoon, the Salt typhoon, all the others. But if you listen to their narrative, it's the US, it's Canada, it's Brazil, it's Colombia, it's Venezuela. And we really don't pay a lot of attention to it. But as a nation, we have allies that have infrastructure here. We have suppliers that are connected intimately to our networks. And we represent, for a lot of them, a soft target as a region, not just as a country. And so cyber defense is something that we really are paying more attention to. And you should also. Because a lot of the situations that you will see impacting a flow, Digicel, and flow sometimes it's through Liberty Latin America. It's not really because somebody just chopped the fiber. It's because somebody else is trying to get into somebody else's network, and flow has a connection that they want to exploit. And when you look at a classic way in which internet service should come into a country, Jamaica doesn't conform. So you don't have the international feeds that come into a MUX that gets divided up and issued to ISPs. You have, for example, Starlink that comes in and just drops a receiver. And you think, well, you're good, you're in Jamaica. No. You're routing through at least Miami. And it is something that we have to take into consideration. Because oftentimes the attack is being perpetrated against that third-party supplier you're using. When I do a daily collation of ISP service, particularly web hosting, if you think of a cheese pan, the size of the cover, a gallon bottle, the size of the cover, a Pepsi bottle, the size of the cover, the smallest circle represents ISPs hosting Jamaican web resources in Jamaica. The next size up is in Western Europe, and the biggest size is in North America. It means, therefore, if Amazon, Microsoft, Google were to be taken out, 98% of Jamaican web services would be taken down. So when we talk about vulnerability and threats, it's not just local, because the first thing we do when we create a website is we throw it to Cloudflare or Amazon or somebody else. And the challenge is that we have no authority to say to them, this is what you're doing outside of your SLA. But the problem is, we don't even read the SLA. And a lot of times, it's the technical people in the companies that negotiate the SLA, don't read it, and don't advise the boards properly. And it creates problems. Syndicates, phishing as a service, I no longer need to be able to even write a line of code to take your business down. I just need to have a Bitcoin wallet and knowledge of how to navigate the dark web. And I can take any organization on and probably take them down. Because these services, they're out there. And especially the work of international law enforcement. We saw just the other day that they took down Black Suit again. We will see if it stays down this time. But when they take down these big organizations, the individuals who are not arrested, the infrastructure that's not confiscated, is used to come back sometimes with more deadly repercussions because now they're trying to monetize. They really don't care. They've lost that sort of criminals have honor thing. Now it's just about making back the money to get back into business. And they will attack usually the most vulnerable targets. And countries like Jamaica and others in the region are there. And then we have opportunists. I don't like this gentleman, but I know he has a website for his company. So I just go and buy a phishing kit and I attack his company. And once I get him, I'll just destroy his company. I don't really care what I do. I'm just going to take him down. And these are the opportunities that you can't really predict what they're going to do. Because if they try phishing and it doesn't work, they're going to try DDoS. And if that doesn't work, they're going to try something else. And sometimes they have the wherewithal to go to my lady in the pink there and say, look, I know you have access to his computer, you know. And I know this is your salary. Tell you what, I can give you a 3-month salary. And all you need to do is just leave the blinds on the window open, leave the screen up, and the light on when you go home. I don't need to get into the company. I just need to get to the window or within 30 feet of your company, and I'm good. We don't practice clear desk or clear screen. And so when we leave the office, all our files are on our desks. You know, the cleaning lady, the cleaning man, I mean, we don't know where they come from, what their motivations are, but we let them in and they have access. And so these individuals, sometimes they don't even know what they have, but they can say to somebody, you know, I have access to somebody else's office. And this is the position they have in the company. And I have the wherewithal to make it worth your while. And so social engineering starts. And then I realize you sit on the board of another company that I really want to get into. And that's how it goes. So when we talk about phishing, it's important that we appreciate the role of training and sensitization, not just for senior people in the company. We all know that in 2023, the Office of the Prime Minister suffered a ransomware attack. How did it happen? An intern was given the task to download and print attachments. And one day, just going through, downloading and printing attachments, download the infected attachment. And that was it. End of story. The BSJ is the same thing. I can talk about these because they're in the public domain. They had a problem 3-4 months before they were hit. And they thought it was not serious enough for them to treat with. But that was the toe-in that the actors needed. And 3 months later, it cost them a minimum of $36 million to fix. The problem, which led to it, could have been fixed by their internal people in a day. Wouldn't have cost them a dime more. The sender. And we're talking here now about whether it's your email, your voice note, your SMS text. Is it coming from somebody you know? Are you expecting it? Does it seem legit in terms of who it is coming from? So if all your friends have English names and you get something from an Arabic sounding or an Asian sounding or a Russian sounding name, why would you just click on it? And these are some of the things we have to talk about. Links. We're in the election season and, you know, the political parties are putting out initiatives and plans and programs. We're heading into back to school and, you know, everybody is putting on a fair and a treat. And, you know, PEP just happened. You have scholarships, high school, you have scholarships going to tertiary institutions. Scams are there a dime a dozen. How do you treat with it? The real estate market, even though people say they can't afford the houses, is booming. Yes, I know you wouldn't understand, but you know, it is something that we have to think about. The scams are not going to come by targeting you as an individual. But everybody in this room is in at least one WhatsApp group. And what anybody, especially those with admin privileges in those groups, do impacts everybody in those groups. And so when we talk about links, I mean, hey, you see what happened last night? Yeah, man, may I send you the thing. And you don't ever check if it's coming from the person who sent you that voice note. You just click on the link. And before you know it, your WhatsApp is taken over, your phone is compromised, the group itself is gone, and we have a problem. You work in accounts, and you're treating with a particular transaction. And you know you got the quotation, you got the invoice that looked a particular way, but you come in this morning and it looks like different. Or suddenly you can't find that email, and when you check your junk, you find an email that seemed to be the email, but you don't really check it. And in it is a link because now the attachment is gone. So sorry about that. Click on this, or the banking details have changed. You need to click on this to confirm. But the companies set themselves up. Because every day in every company in Jamaica, you get an email with a link in it. Why is it we can't implement a no-link policy in our companies? Because one day, that link from the malicious actor is going to look just like the link that a person gets every day. And that person might just be having a bad day and click the link. And that's a challenge we're going to have. Attachments. We talk about the paperless office, and it's an ideal that we strive for. But when we really think about it, it's probably an ideal we will never achieve. And so when we think about attachments, you create a document, you print and sign the document, and then you scan it and attach it, and you send it. Seems like a really innocuous practice. But it is saying to persons observing your processes that this is one way that you can be infiltrated. For those who use electronic signing, again, the thing is, why not create a document store to which persons are advised that the document is in and they go there and access it rather than sending links and attachments? These are practical examples that you really have to consider if you run a company. And messages. Sometimes during the pandemic, we used to say we're zoomed out, or Teams and Google Meet and all of that. But now we find that the pandemic is over, but we've stayed in the emerging normal of just having online meetings. And as a consequence, we no longer feel the need to pick up the phone and call somebody and say, hey, this is what I would like to be done. You're sending them a message, whether it's an SMS or a WhatsApp message. Or if you have Teams and it's properly set up, you're sending them message in the Teams chat. But all of these platforms are inherently vulnerable. And when you put too much emphasis on their use, you open up your company, you open up your employees, especially those who have not been sensitized, empowered, or are aware, to create challenges for you by sending them messages that they must open, they must read. And sometimes you do that at 4:30 on a Friday. And so this employee, just out of frustration, is going to click something because they really want to get home. So sometimes when you're in positions of authority in companies and you think about just punching that message and sending it off, think again. Who you're really sending it to? What's their state of mind today? Is it something that is going to create a problem for you later down? And you might sometimes reconsider the method with which you communicate on that particular occasion. So AI and large language models are something that a new buzzword. Everybody wants to use AI. Everybody wants to be in the know. But what we find is that phishing you used to be able to detect certain red flags based on your cultural norms when it comes to phishing. Generative AI has leveled that playing field. No longer can you say, well, if it looks this way or sounds this way, it's coming from somebody who it shouldn't. Because generative AI can deal with a tone, it can deal with even emotionally charged messages depending on what's happening in your day to day, so that you have a challenge in treating with that. The imitation of your writing style. And if you think about LinkedIn, a lot of us write nice articles and post on LinkedIn. We post it for the public to see. And usually it is done in such a way that if you can really copy it, you can reproduce or create a piece of correspondence that is almost indistinguishable from you writing it yourself. There are generative AI, there are agentic AI models out there that can do this for malicious actors. And so what we find is that they're able, therefore, to use AI to make the process a lot less painful for them and more seamless for you. For this, um, if we had the time, I would probably walk through the exercise, but you can do it on your own. Yeah, if you require the slide deck, we can share it. Because the differences are so subtle that you really have to pay attention to see the difference between the fake and the real message here. It cut out all the misspelling, the use of Cyrillics and all of that in creating the fake one, and just simply used AI to generate it. And what you find really was that the differences take critical thought to identify. And this is how it really sort of pans out. We're able, through the use of AI, to automate phishing campaigns. So we don't have to sit down and say, all right, you have 10 employees in the organization that we're targeting, and we need to create a germane or generic message for each. We simply take the profile we've created of you, plug it into the agentic AI, and it generates the message tailored to you, and it's different for you, and it's different for you. And all I have done is to go online, build a profile, or go on the dark web, buy the profile, and plug it into the AI. So what we find is that some of the things that we used to hide behind, when the message hits some of these filters, it simply stops or returns, morphs, and comes back to bypass the filter it met. And that's what the threat actors are doing with AI. What the cybersecurity professionals need to do or advise people to do is to have similar AI built into their safeguards so that when it morphs and comes back, your defensive AI will notice the change, but recognize those bits of it that has not changed and still block it. We do not, as a country, as government entities, as private sector, believe that we will be hacked, or we will be hacked in such a way that it will cost us. And that's individually, as entities or individuals. But look around you. It's happening every day. It's happening everywhere. It's becoming more expensive each day when there's a successful breach. Do not be the one whose mistake teaches others. Learn from the mistake that has already taken place. So if we look at the case study, and I had mentioned this one earlier, the individual who received the initial message thought it was a phishing attempt and actually delayed actioning it. But then the created CFO called, and when the concern was raised, decided that a meeting should be set up with 8 other members of the C-suite, all of which were deepfakes. So when he actually logged in and thought he was talking with the gentleman in the UK, it was just a deepfake. And everybody else on the call who were deepfakes agreed that the money should be wired. And yeah, he didn't want to lose his job, so he got a task, he did it. 200 million Hong Kong dollars, 25.6 million US. And it was only discovered that there was a scam when he said, yeah, I mean, the money I transferred, I've got no confirmation that it was received or anything. What's happening with that? And that's when the CFO realized that he here gave the authority for that transfer to take place, even though it wasn't him. So we might say that really can't happen here. But if we go to the next one, we see pretty much the same thing happening. It's just that it wasn't deepfake. So you had a group of about 13 people who between April and June in 2022 scammed a number of NCD customers, $47.5 million. Right? It took them until November of 2024 to make the first arrest. Right? And thereafter, they were able to make arrests in March. On the 12th and the 14th, ended up arresting about 13 people. But the challenge here is that this matter is before the court. So I will defer some of my comments. What is evident, though, is that April, May, June, the same accounts, and the banks tell you that they manage your spending patterns for your accounts and your cards. But over a 3-month period, none of this was detected. And that, for you, should be concerning. Because if you take your credit card and you yourself change jurisdictions and try to spend a dime, they're probably going to lock it down. But here it is. There are a whole bunch of others. There was, when the public sector wage restructuring took place, permanent secretaries were targeted. The call would come from a legitimate financial institution call center number, but the request for a callback was to a cell phone number. And once you called it back, they started to ask those questions that you would think somebody working in the financial institution's call center should ask. And if you were not astute enough or paying attention, you provided the information. As far as government, the Office of the Cabinet is a regular target. Almost every week, there are emails coming from all over the globe from spoofed Office of the Cabinet email addresses, which continues to be a challenge because persons in the cabinet continues to use their email addresses to sign up on questionable sites. And these are challenges that when you send the notifications, persons think, I really don't need to deal with this today. Ladies and gentlemen, it is one of the easiest ways to lose control of your digital assets. 20 years ago, we needed to hack into your physical space, whether that was through your firewall or through your door or whatever it is. Today, we send you the payload through innocuous means, and you give us access. We no longer need to try to break into your digital storerooms. We allow you to invite us in. It's how we've changed the way we operate because your defenses, particularly your perimeter defenses, got very good in the 90s and the early 2000s. It disappeared in 2020 when the pandemic forced working from home, learning from home. So now your security posture became the least secure person connecting to your network. But your IT people gave them privileged access, VPN access to your corporate resources. And they did not act as good stewards because they took those very VPN enabled credentials and went to Citadel to book vacations in Canada. Citadel got breached, and now all of those are on the deep and dark web. They're using it to sign up for school. And those platforms are as leaky as a sieve on a rainy day. But your corporate credentials are out there. In 2023, 70% of all the ransomware attacks in Jamaica were perpetrated using compromised credentials with VPN access. So it means that even though you're giving these nice access out, you're not really auditing it, you're not checking what they're doing with it, and you don't have enough measures in place to prevent it from coming back in and doing things it should. So social engineering really, when we talk about defending against it, we build those defenses on 3 pillars. And what we're trying to do is to ensure that we appreciate how the threat actor thinks. We're not saying to you that this is what you do because you're a user of technology. We're saying this is how we think, and this is what we would do to get into your digital reserves. And if we take phishing out of it, then the National Cybersecurity Center in the UK came up with a nice chart. I didn't feel the need to recreate the wheel. And really, there are 4 layers that they recommend. And defense in depth is always recommended when you're in a defensive posture. And these 4 layers, really, if you implement them, and you have either smart technology at the end, or a human being that receives those alerts, will mitigate a lot of the impact that phishing can cause on you as an individual or an entity itself. So the call to action, ladies and gentlemen, is simple. 1, vulnerability mitigation. Let's plug the gaps before the damage is done. Let us recognize that no system is 100% proof. So every single system that's created has a gap somewhere. When we find them, let us plug them. It means vulnerability mitigation must be something that is critical. We want to cut the kill chain before the breach occurs. By doing that, we won't have to deal with the breach or deal with the breach at the level and with the impact that it will create. Breach data. And like I said earlier, there are 2 big buckets. It either came from your organization or it came from the actions of your employees. If it came from your organization, find the breach, find the hole, plug the hole, fix it. Conduct the awareness training. You may even need to restrict access for some people until they have confirmed through training, sensitization, and testing that they deserve to have access to your resources. Not a popular topic with the HR or some of the union members in companies. But what is more important? Having a happy employee or a secure company? You decide. And third, incident reporting. At the start, it doesn't matter how good we become, how well-resourced we are. We cannot defend against what we cannot measure. Unless we're going to invade your privacy by actively scanning your networks, by actively trying to exploit every vulnerability that we find, the only way we will get the data to be able to maintain that threat picture is if you report the incidents, is if you disclose the vulnerabilities. There are frameworks to do that responsibly. There are frameworks to do that so you're not even named as a party to it. But what it allows us to do is to appreciate what is happening elsewhere in Jamaica that we're not monitoring. We're Jamaica. And although United Oil and Gas trying to do something, we don't find the oil yet. It means we have limited resources with which to do certain things. And any politician you talk to is going to tell you that something as intangible as cyber has to compete with the roads, the schools, the water, and other resources. It means, therefore, that you can help us to help you better. Because let me tell you, while for your entity or yourself, you might have sleepless nights. Imagine for us what our nights look like. Those nightmares are not things you want to tell your grandchildren, eh? Because when you think about it, the manner in which some of us take cyber delinquency to whole new depths and forget about cyber hygiene while living online, it creates challenges. And when we look, for example, at breach data on the deep and dark web, it suggests that a number of things are happening. One, a lot of companies have been breached and they don't know. A lot of employees have used corporate resources on platforms and sites that have been breached and they don't know. And a lot of companies have vulnerabilities created by these breaches that are being exploited in quiet, and data is being either exfiltrated or the lateral movement is being used to see whether or not it's worth taking it to the next level. Because the number of credentials that are in these data stores on the deep and dark web that are active and viable should cause every single corporation in Jamaica, public or private, to have a dry day. We used to call it in the military. You shut it down, you check it, and you serve eviction notice to the dwellers. And let me tell you, these threat actors dwell. The longest on record is 9 months. From entry into the network to the execution of the malware, 9 months in Jamaica, right? So something for us to think about. So this really is our simple call to action, ladies and gentlemen. And if we can do this in partnership with the CERT, and sometimes that's going to be through a third party that you engage. But understand that the third parties you're engaging are largely not native Jamaican companies. Some of them are not even Caribbean companies. Where is your data? Does the idea of data sovereignty appeal to you? As we move away from the on-prem solutions, do we consider the implications of cloud service provision? How many of us read Executive Order number 12 by President Trump in his first term on his way out of office? If you haven't, you probably should. And this is what you get, essentially, from partnering with us. And let me say this here, even though it's not phishing. It's a shameless plug by me on the behalf of the division. When we started, it was because Uruguay had to come to Jamaica to fix the problem in 2013, because Jamaica couldn't do it on her own. Working with our international partners, the strategy was created, promulgated, and the CERT was created. And by and large, the CERT has delivered on those 12 points in the mandate up to now. But it has done so almost on its own. There are a few companies locally that work with us. But by and large, corporate Jamaica has taken from managed security service providers this idea that if you share the relevant data with government, police going to turn up at your door, they're going to confiscate your equipment, and you're going to have challenges. So let me set the record straight. That's not the case. We're not going to help you fix a problem and then tell the JCF that your network was being used as a spam relay. And they come and lock you up for malicious communication. That's not how we operate. What we will be able to do based on what we're able to do with any one of you is to ensure that the others of you don't suffer the same fate in the same way by the same vectors. And secondly, when we think about where we go from here, as resources become even tighter, given the economic restructuring of the world geopolitically, based on what President Trump in his second term is doing, we have to recognize that in the absence of the existence of a local company, we have to treat with certain things. This country has 2.8 million people, and daily there's 3.05 million concurrent connections to the internet. More than 2/3 of that is mobile, which suggests that a lot of the connections are by individuals. And because the number of accounts is just over half of that, it suggests that most individuals have multiple devices, which means that that individual has at least 3 points of connection to the internet every day: corporate, personal, and secret. I say secret because I don't know what you do with your second device. But when you think about it, if you take any of the accounts on any of those devices, the same password is being used across all of them. For the average Jamaican, it's between 60 and 80 accounts that they have among banking, personal, and corporate per individual. And they're using the same password, or passwords that follow a similar pattern of creation. So if you guess one, you can guess all of them. When you think about this, and you think about the guards at the gate, the nice cipher locks and proxy cards to get in, but the janitor can access the cubicles that are left with the computers up, no password, no screen protector, no shutdown. Ask yourself the question, what will it cost you if that janitor should be compromised or become malicious? The CERT through those services, which are free of cost, and sometimes better than what you're paying for. We responded to 7 ransomware incidents in 1 year, where the same company was on cybersecurity retainer, and the same problems with the ICT infrastructure existed at each company. And they were using pretty much the same technology stack. Same router, same firewall, same misconfigurations. We're fixing it though. Over the next 5 years, we will seek to implement through a project that we're starting next month a number of things to build a robust talent pipeline, because we recognize it's a challenge. The good people, they chase the dollar, they become digital nomads, and oftentimes what the international companies bring is not what they sell in other jurisdictions, because they don't think you will know the difference or you will insist on the standard. And this is something we've seen, something we're working on, but something you have to partner with us for us to fix once and for all. So ladies and gentlemen, if we sort of bring it all together, the table on screen is really what it boils down to. business email compromise and the challenges with corporate email and the cross-pollination between personal and corporate work on devices and by individuals is creating a challenge. It is a big challenge for your data security. Credential phishing is going to be something that follows us because there is a treasure trove of viable credentials on the dark web. And what you have are people whose only job is to go down, find the email addresses and the passwords that work, do the social engineering, build a profile, and sell it. And it's good money. Maybe I should change and do that. And if you go down the list, we'll stop at AI. We have to recognize that AI for us in Jamaica has two main vectors of threat. The first is generative AI, which everybody is using. Nobody is paying attention to prompt generation and what they're plugging into these generative platforms to get responses. They're taking your entire budget and plugging it in just to get summaries. These are challenges that we have to think about. Then there's agentic AI, which is going to create more and more challenges for us as it's going to automate processes to break into our systems. And as we move forward, as we rely on these systems, the prevalence, the use, sometimes not even maliciously, but carelessly or without enough knowledge is going to create challenges for us. And impersonation. Instagram right now, Instagram businesses, Facebook or Meta, and the businesses that are on there. The way these businesses are cloned, impersonated, and used to really suck monies out of unsuspecting or sometimes careless individuals is a big challenge. Yes, your son did well. Yes, your daughter did well. You want to get them the iPhone 16. But if it's too cheap, maybe you really shouldn't buy it. And if you took the time to create a business on Instagram or Meta, monitor your system. Check whether or not there is domain squatting or whether or not you're being impersonated, because your brand is being damaged and sometimes there's no recourse. It's the same with real estate. A lot of the real estate agents don't monitor what they're putting up and whether or not people are cloning, impersonating, and representing them when they're not there. And it's a big challenge. So the clarion call, if I can make it, is really for us to approach technology as an enabler and understand that cybersecurity is how we are going to secure the digital assets. We must, if we work in a company, understand what our crown jewels are, because we may never have enough resources to secure the entire castle. So we must know where the ramparts is, and we must know where to fall back to, and what we must defend at all costs. Cloud computing is not a panacea. It's not a silver bullet to system administration and information system security. It is just a transfer or a sharing of the responsibility for these things. And far too often, directors of MIS and system administrators just said to boards, let's go to the cloud. There was one financial institution that was hit with ransomware. And when they checked it, the last time they checked, their cloud-based backup was 3 years before the ransomware attack. So their tech people just recommended the change. They did the change. They didn't even turn off the always on backup on-prem. They just simply transferred everything on to the cloud. And the last time they checked it was 3 years before. And this is an entity with billions of dollars in assets and hundreds of investors. So that would be my conversation, a little over 20 minutes, but I hope it was worth it. And, we're going to have a number of these. It is our 10th anniversary. And while we will not be out there having sessions, as in dancehall type stuff, we're going to do a lot of these. And we're going to try to reach people where they are. We're going to go into the communities. Again, it's difficult because some of the communities you can't really go into at night, and sometimes these people are at work. But we'll try to find something that works. And we're going to ensure that for this 10th year, we try to cut the kill chain before it gets to the breach. I thank you for your time and attention, and I'll take any questions you may have, or we can call it. Yes, sir. Mhm. Yes, we ask you to use the
Yes,
microphone because there are persons online.
no problem. Yes, so they're saying the hosting ISPs are saying there's no way of taking your email or your IP address from off that blacklist, right? So your domain is totally blocked. Based on your experience, is there any way of getting off it? That's question one. Question two, in terms of protecting your website and your website hosting, is there any way or recommendation of best practices of protecting your websites? Now we're talking about your plugins, all sorts of plugins that you install to your website, right? But is there a way in terms of firewall, whatever it is, right, that is at a different level of protecting your websites? My third question is in terms of open ports. So when you have open ports, you know you can't close all the ports. You're going to need ports, right? But what's the level of risk? And my final question, in terms of the vulnerability reports and remediation. So once you fix all of those, you remediate all the vulnerabilities. What's the level of risk that is still there? Because I know that there are different levels of attacks and so on. So what's your take?
All right, so you're assuming that my brain is as good as my mouth. Your first question, the once you're block listed, it means your IP address is in a block of IP addresses that has been blacklisted. Hmm? In terms of taking it off the list, some of the entities are requesting that you pay. Right? It's up to you whether or not you do that. It's not recommended. But the ISPs can do a reverse DNS setup for you, such that when these entities try to blacklist the block of IP addresses, your IP address resolves as it should, backwards and forwards, and it's not impacted by the blocking mechanisms that they use. The main culprits are Barracuda, Spamhaus, Dynarat, and they do it because that's how they make money, right? So for everybody who pays them to come off the list, they earn, right? But if you set it up properly, in fact, if you set up reverse DNS before you get blocklisted, then it's something that mitigates your being in that block when it happens. You have to recognize, though, with respect to protecting your website. When I started doing website, you sat and you wrote HTML code, right? Now everybody is using a CMS, a content management system. And they're a content management system, and they're a content management system. Many people use WordPress. And WordPress is probably the easiest thing to get your site up, but it's the worst thing to use to author your site. Hmm? So it's really what you're using and how you're doing that. But web application firewalls, the creation of a DMZ, using proxies, putting your public facing resources in that DMZ. So even if it gets compromised, it's not impacting your core operational functions, are things that you can do to mitigate, not prevent, mitigate the impact, and sometimes allow you to catch the breach before it gets to the point where you have to sort of fix it. Hmm? We don't put a lot of store on honeypots, but really, if you're putting resources online, you should have a honeypot. If you have people to really sit down and look at what attackers do when they get in the honeypot, it would make you want to just close everything off and go with an ear gap solution and everybody come to your office. But we can get into that another time. Your third question about
Ports.
ports. Yes, you need ports to communicate with your resources, but you can manage the ports. You don't have to just throw the port open and leave it. So it's kind of like putting in one of those nice automatic gates, but then you use the manual key and open the gate and leave it. No. Manage the port, configure the port. So for example, SSH. We use it for remote connections, but you can manage it so that only who is supposed to connect to your SSH port can connect and get a response from the port or even get through it. What we find is that a lot of people just turn on SSH and leave it. Right? And your fourth question had to do with what?
Vulnerability report remediation.
So for vulnerabilities, you're mitigating it because it's something that can be exploited that has not been exploited yet. So you're fixing it. And once you've fixed it, if you're happy with the mitigation of the vulnerability, then we recommend that you do a penetration test. And that will check whether or not the work you've done to mitigate the exploitation of that vulnerability has been done properly or was just shoddily done. If it's properly done, the penetration test will fail or fail to get through in the manner that the original vulnerability would have allowed. If it's not properly done, we will get through just the same. So you'd have to do it again. If it's breach data, understand that if your data is already on the dark web, the cost to remove it is sometimes not worth it. But what you have to do is to interrogate the situation so that you appreciate how it got there in the first place, fix that problem, and if it requires sensitization or education or restriction of access until some level of learning is achieved, you do that. And then once you've done that, you do a VA or a pen test to ensure that the problem that led to it has been fixed if it was on your network. If it wasn't on your network, then it means it's a culture problem. It's the attitude of your employees to the resources that you give them, or the attitude of the company to how employees use their personal resources. Because you have some companies who tell employees that they must use their personal device to do company work. And you don't know what the people are doing with their personal devices. Some of these devices are shared by 6, 7 people when it reach home. From Roblox to Among Us to porn sites to games. And it comes back onto your network in the morning. No quarantine, no checks, nothing. So what I'm saying is, when you think about vulnerabilities, almost every system is created inherently vulnerable. You've got to find it when you take it out of the box and lock down what you do in it. And when it comes to breaches, it's either on your network or caused by people in your network. And you've got to fix it based on where it exists. What we can do is to assist you if we find your data out there by telling you that it exists and giving you steps to fix it. As a matter of rule, we don't touch end user systems because we can't do it for everyone and we're not going to do it for some. Yeah. If it's a vulnerability, if you can't fix it in-house, we will provide you with the steps to mitigate it. But it is something that has to be done if you're going to elevate your security posture, reduce your cyber delinquency, and help the culture in your organization to move towards one of cyber hygiene and then cyber resilience. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, just one more. So in terms of the REST API, by default, that's open on WordPress. All right. So if you have external systems that are talking to your system, right? So you need to open the REST API. What is the risk of using the REST API? Is there a way of protecting it when you leave it open to communicate with other systems?
It depends on how your systems communicate. Is it required that they communicate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? About 15 years ago, I had an employee who never spent more than about 3 minutes online. at any one time. They would come on in the morning, check their emails, log out the email system, and unplug from the internet, carry on with their work, and they would get back on sometime in the afternoon and do the same thing. Right? If you must connect using whatever facility, whether it's a port, a resource, an app, a portal, the question is, must it always be open?
Yes, if that's the case, yes, 24/7.
Then you have to ensure the configuration is such that it facilitates whatever traffic is coming to it or being sent through it, and not just anybody walking through it. And if it must remain open, then it must be monitored. So if you set controls on it and those controls are breached and an alert is triggered, it must go to somebody or something that can respond. You can't just set it up and leave it. Otherwise, you might as well just not use it. Yeah?
Thank you.
There is no answer that will tell you that this will prevent. Well, not from me, certainly. I will tell you how to manage the process. It's kind of like driving a car. Collisions will happen. And note I didn't say accidents. Collisions will happen. The question is, are you covered with insurance? Do you drive defensively? Are you hot-headed and do you suffer from road rage? All right?
All right, thank you.
Good.
Good evening. Many of the recommendations that you gave, it relies heavily on resources, both human and capital, with a lot of the entities not having those resources, human and capital, within the technical environments. What would be your recommendation for being globally acceptable with your security posture, but then a lot of these entities do not have the globally acceptable resources?
So I'll answer you two ways. Let the breach occur, and the money will be there. But for those entities that are resource light, open source has a wealth of resources. Some of them are customizable, some of them are out the box. You have to use them, which means you have to monitor what they generate. But there is a wealth of resources that are open source that you can use. If you're not into the sort of work that we're in, where our work must meet evidentiary standards in a court of law, so you can't just use any and every technology to do the work, then you can find resources out there that you can leverage within the open source community that will help you to secure your setup very well. What you need are tech people who understands how to translate the bits and bytes problems into dollars and cents for the C-suite, and for companies to stop relegating technology and tech issues to the basement and bring it into the boardroom. Sir. I think he was first, so then him, then you. No, man. You were before.
All right. So my question, good evening, everyone. So my question really is for a presentation like this, suppose you want the services of the CERT to come into an organization and do a presentation. Is that something that you do? Or we have to wait on a presentation to get access to it?
One of the things we do is we provide CERT speakers. So depending on the topic, depending on the location, the modality, etc. As long as we're not responding to incidents, once you request a speaker, and we ask that you give us 2 weeks between your request and the date you require us, we will turn up.
Okay, and is there a fee? And if there is, what's the fee like?
There's a very high fee. It requires that you bring your people together and that they remain attentive and that they take the lessons on board. No, we don't charge anything for the services that we provide.
All right, thank you.
Okay, good
Yes,
evening. My question is, All right, I know you spoke about the big companies and all of that, but what about like us, the micro, the small who don't have that high level of budget and monitor, but yet still we have to handle data and cost, for example, as a landscape and an event planner, which you have a lot of sensitive informations and all of that. So what sort of recommendation can you provide? Remember now, don't have that big budget to hire these ITs and all of these expensive IT, but we still have to be mindful about handling a lot of these data, both from the financial institution and such like. If you get the point what I'm trying to make.
Right. Thank you for the question. So, micro, small, and medium enterprises often just don't participate. It's not that there is no help for you, is that you just think you don't have anything that anybody wants, so you don't participate. So, there are a couple of things. One of the first thing is this is 2025. It's not 1995. Stop using crack software. The second is if you're going to put people's data on a system, invest in a good system. So it might mean that you cut your profit for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, depending on your pay cycle, but buy a proper system. If you want help setting it up, you can come to us. We will walk you through remotely and get you set up. When you seek to leverage that, and even if you're using a smartphone, you really have to separate your personal life from your work, right? And so for the micro people, I mean, whether you're using ends or you're using one of the wallets that uses Jamdex or anything like that, you cannot use the same device that you're using to collect PCI related data to go check your porn site later, right? And so what we find is that you have to decide how you're going to approach this setup. Start small. A single computer with a hard drive, an external hard drive that you do your backup, and probably Gmail or some other free secure email. Proton is the recommended one. It won't give you a lot of the trouble that Gmail gives you. Once you start doing that and you start storing the data, you have to recognize that you have only a single point of failure. So whatever the regimen that you set up with your backup, you must follow it. So when you start with that one hard drive and you do your backup, you're going to be doing full backups because you don't have enough resources to the state versus user data versus full system. But over time, you have to get to that point. So you don't have to buy 5 terabyte or 40 terabyte drives. You can buy a 1 terabyte drive every other month until you have 3 or 4 so that you can do 3, 2, 1 and still have 1 in reserve. And you're still only using one computer. But that one computer also that you use for your business should really not be used for your child to do homework or for you to do your social media stuff. It's your business stuff, right? And so we will walk you through that. If you already have something set up, then we will also help you to ensure that it meets the standard in terms of configuration. So for example, that router that you have at home because you're working from home, you don't have to have everybody using the same SSID to get on the internet. You can segment it. So you can create the main SSID for your business, and then you can leverage the IoT setups on the router, depending on how modern it is, for your kids or your visitors to access. Some of them come with encryption. You can do that. The default passwords must be changed, right? So there are basic things that you can do. What we ask is that the MSME Alliance work with us. We've reached out to them over and over, and sometimes they respond, sometimes they don't. Sometimes around October, they come on board, but they don't. Cybersecurity is an always on job. Cyber criminals don't take a break. Neither do we, realistically. But what we would like for you to do is to appreciate the magnitude of what you're doing in collecting people's personally identifiable information with your health or financial information and separate it. Initially, it's going to cost. And sometimes that means you have to take a loan and invest in the business and repay the loan out of the business. But when it comes to like the setup, the configuration, etc., you reach out to us, we'll walk you through.
Good evening, everyone. I have a simple question, as I have something I would like to show you after. Who are your partners for government? Who are your partners? Because I got up, my entity got an interesting email, say that we have a security breach. They don't say what it is. Their initial is NOS. I've never heard of anywhere named NOS. And there's some other descriptions saying they are related to the OPM, and it's just confusing. So I know it's not legit, but I just want to know who are your partners. If it's just you or there are other government entities that work with you.
What entity do you represent, sir?
JCPD.
Okay.
They make accounts for persons with disabilities.
Right. So the letter you would have gotten is not from NOS, but from NSOC. And it is from us, because it is us. So the cyber incident response, bear with me. So we're going back to the, what's that, fifth slide? Right, but while that comes up, so the Cyber Incident Response Team Division has two functional arms, the National Security Operations Center for Cyber and the Jamaica, that's not the fifth slide, and the Jamaica Cyber Incident Response Team. The National Security Operations Center, or NSOC, NSOC, does environment scans, vulnerability assessment, threat intelligence, threat hunting, you know, we do it. And if we find your organization out there with vulnerabilities or breach data, then we will reach out to you. The letter you got would probably be a vulnerability notification, or it may be a breach notification. But either way, it requires that you reach out to authenticate with us before we send you the data set. So it's not false or fake. And your organization, depending on whether it's a vulnerability or a breach, is at risk. You know, I am surprised at how little people know of us, not necessarily about us, because certainly we're out there, and this is something we do all the time. So what I would ask is, I'll speak with you after, if you still require, but that you respond to that letter, providing a point of contact that we can authenticate. We will then share with you via secure means the breach data or the vulnerability data, and we will work with you to either mitigate the vulnerability or remediate the breach. All right, so this is the slide. So this is us, the division. This is our mandate. And this is the National Security Operations Center. And these are our lines of operation. Right? So if it's really NSOC, then we're legit. But to answer your question, really, our partners in government, cyber in Jamaica is split into three. There's cybersecurity, cyber defense, and law enforcement. Cybersecurity is us, which resides within the Office of the Prime Minister. Cyber defense, because of its very nature, and law enforcement, because it involves the police and MOCA, resides with the Ministry of National Security. Those are our core partners. We work with entities like the Institute of Forensic Science and Legal Medicine. We work with entities like the FID, the FLA, depending on what the situation is. Within the private sector, we also have partners. I'm not giving anybody any free advertisement, so I won't deal with that here. But we do work with entities because, having said all of that, the CERT division operates on 4 levels of priority. Priority 1 are those ministries, departments, and agencies that are critical for the continuation of governance. Right? Priority 2, ministries, departments, and agencies, and private enterprise that own or operate national critical information and infrastructure. Right? So your service providers like Flow Digital, the NWC, etc., would fall in that group. Priority 3 are all of the ministries, departments, and agencies and bodies corporate that provide critical services or important services. And just a word on national critical infrastructure. There are some things that we look at as services and we say it's critical. But when we developed an objective methodology and applied it to certain things, it didn't meet the threshold. So for example, if you look at health, the provision of healthcare is critical, but the hospitals are not. If you understand what I'm saying. So if you have a problem at CRH, you can go to KPH or you can go to UE. And it's roughly an hour by air to Miami. But the ability to access critical healthcare is critical. So the ability to manage the health information systems, the telemedicine, etc., those are critical services that we support, as opposed to just the hospital being there, right? Same thing with electricity. Power generation is not critical. Power distribution is. Yep. But talk with us, and we'll help you work it through. All right? All right. Look like we've come to that. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So my question relates to phishing and how as organizations we manage the potential for phishing within our organization. Now, you mentioned something about an employee that only checks his, plugs into the internet 3 minutes and disconnects, but is it that our organizations, they are contributing to the culture of the organization, then is contributing to our potential for phishing, because there's always this urgency. I can't imagine I'm not connected to my email constantly throughout the day. That's something that's the culture of the organization. Now, that's one. Two, you mentioned also that that phishing is, I mean, we know that phishing is it's getting very sophisticated. No longer is it something that we can just look on and say, oh, no, oh, that's a phishing email. But, you know, the organization, they send us these phishing simulations. They look so real. I'm wondering if they're trying to set me up. Is it that I can't trust my organization anymore? Is the content really that, should we be focusing on the content of phishing, seeing that they're so real these days, or should we be focusing on the behavior of employees as it relates to how they deal with, or they interact with emails then? But are we saying to employees, we can't trust an organization because they might be phishing us, sending us these phishing emails to embarrass us as employees, when really, you know, they should be focusing on how our behavior in terms of how we interact with emails in general, not just because we don't know if it's a phishing email. We don't know if it's an organization trying to trick us.
Thank you for the question. It raises a couple of important situations, right? But I first want to assure you that the company is not trying to trick you, and the company is not trying to embarrass you. What a company is trying to do is to empower you to be able to recognize phishing emails. Yep. Anybody who clicks on that phishing email in a simulation will feel a bit embarrassed. But that's not the intent of the exercise. And in some corporations, if you do click on that email, all your access is suspended until you attend some sort of training and pass it. The idea here is that even though it might not have been said to you, the company is really looking out for you and itself, because it is ensuring that you can recognize a phishing email and won't click on it and cause or cost the company. What you have to recognize is that while the best practice is that such a thing should really be sensitized before it is tested, sometimes it is tested, measured, and then focus sensitization takes place. I don't know your organization. I don't know what the culture is. But at the end of the day, any entity that's set up, as long as it's not an NGO, is set up to make profit. And that bottom line is impacted by every single cyber incident that cost the company. So if you change your perspective of the exercise from one of, boy, the company is out to get me, to the company is looking out for me, and look more critically at the slam, the sender, the links. No, I know it can be a bit of a tedium, but understand something. How many emails do you open on a given day, roughly? All right, let's say you open 200 emails. How many of those 200 emails really require urgent action? Probably 10, 5. Everything else is most likely a routine thing. You know, HR sending out something about a training, finance sending out something about thing down the road. So even though you cannot see yourself not connected to your email, I challenge you, unplug for 2 hours. From you get to work for 2 hours, don't touch the email. And tell me how many times your phone rings, and tell me how many persons walk through your door. And I can tell you, if your phone don't ring and nobody walks through your door, then all the urgency that you see in those emails are not really urgent. So take the time and check the email. All right? The challenge, therefore, is how to recognize that the company, while it may have gone about it in the reverse, is really not trying to set you up, but is trying to ensure that you can be part of the first line of defense, and how you can change your attitude and perspective to the training or the test, as it may be, and how you can engage your HR or management or both to do it a little differently. And if you can do that, we're right here. We're not going anywhere. Come back and talk to me about it. And maybe I can engage them on your behalf to see if we can switch that. But then you might say you're going to be victimized. And maybe that's the case. Maybe it's not. But you have to recognize that for them not to do anything about phishing is for them to be sort of irresponsible. And so you and them, you have to find some common ground as employees and employers in terms of implementing the setup so that the company benefits and you become more cyber aware. All right? You had asked the second question, which I sort of lost. All right, awesome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the questions I'm sure could go on forever, but I called you out on a fairly wet evening and you turned up. So I am going to call it here. The only other slide after the question and answer slide would have been our contact information. We're here on the ground floor. We're on social media. We have a website. We still have the prizes to give out for Popo and Lexus. You know, it's really something that I wish Jamaica as a country would recognize, that as we move through the development of cyber, of technology, the need to remain plugged in, we have to appreciate that the more we plug in, the greater the risk of challenges from a cyber event. And since no system can be created bulletproof, we have to, as human beings, stop accepting that we're the weakest link. Empower ourselves and become the first line of defense in the cyber kill chain. All right? Thank you for your time, and I hope to see you at the next event.
All right. Thank you, Colonel Sterling, for such a great presentation. Just to recap, you went over social engineering, evolution of phishing, types of scams, threat actor trends, and many, many more. But I think the two things that I think we should really remember is the recognition cues for phishing, which was the SLAM method, which you're the sender. You need to know who you're getting the message from and if it's legit. You need to check the links. We can't just click links from anywhere, and I think companies should really implement the no link policies. And for attachments, we should really avoid unsolicited attachments, and then for messages, really think before we message people. Sometimes it's really on call for we can really just call them. And for the call to action, the vulnerability mitigations, like we should really plug the weaknesses that we have in the organization. For breach data mitigation, we should contain and cleanse and communicate. And for incident reporting, we should really go from stop being silent and be very aware of what's going on. So to formally thank everyone, Monique is going to come with the votes of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Um, so on behalf of the SAR division, we just like to thank everybody watching online as well as those in person for taking time out of their busy schedules to come here. We know it's a bit late, but nevertheless, we thank you. Your active participation is what makes these sessions worthwhile. We also like to thank the Ministry of Science, Energy, Telecommunications, and Transport for providing the venue and their support in putting this event together. We thank the technical staff for their smooth transitions for audio and visual support. We also thank the venue service staff for their assistance. And lastly, and finally, we'd like to thank the CERT team for organizing this event and putting it together. And we would like everyone to stay tuned as we continue to celebrate our 10th anniversary celebrations. We will have more sessions like this. So follow our social media platforms and stay tuned as to what is happening. Thank you and have a great evening.
So just I think for everyone here, we're gonna have networking and food, which is over there. I'm gonna read that. And then for the ones online, I'm sorry you guys can't eat with us, but thanks for coming nevertheless. And for Popo and the other person, meet Rihanna at the table at the back for your prize.